This is the Brave New Coin Crypto Conversation, hosted by Andy Pickering.
Hi everyone, Andy Pickering here. I'm your host and welcome to the Crypto Conversation, a Brave New Coin podcast where we talk to the people building the future in the Bitcoin, blockchain, and cryptocurrency space. Hey folks, it is clear that DeFi is continuing to drive innovation and growth in the crypto space. The Crypto Conversation sponsor BitGet has dived deep into DeFi with the recent evolution of the BitGet wallet, a self-custody multi-chain DeFi wallet. You can think of the BitGet wallet as the integration of some of the best parts of decentralized finance or DeFi with the BitGet exchange, centralized finance or CeFi structure. And it's more than just secure storage. One of the most important aspects of the Web3 BitGet wallet is BitGet Swap, which supports tokens from more than 90 different blockchains and offers cross-chain compatibility across 17 different chains. BitGet Swap aggregates liquidity across 100 DEXs and leverages intelligent routing mechanisms to provide users with the best trading prices across different protocols. So try the BitGet wallet. Download the app today. I've put a link in the show notes, or just go to web3.bitget.com. All right. Well, thank you to BitGet. And now it is on with the show. My guest today is Jasper De Gooyer. Jasper is the co-founder and CTO at Seda, a multi-chain permissionless protocol connecting real-world data to any network on-chain. Looks interesting indeed. Welcome to the show, Jasper.
Thank you so much for having me, Andy.
It is a pleasure. Jasper, let's do what we do at the beginning of the show. It'd be great if you could please introduce yourself. Love to hear some of your personal and professional backstory, what you've been doing in the lead up to co-founding Seda.
Yeah, sounds great. So my very first sort of like serious entrepreneurial startup was right out of college, actually. So me and two friends decided to drop out of college and build essentially analytics using Facebook data. So we were building on top of the Facebook Graph API and essentially selling conclusions that we pull from that data to publishers on Facebook, so large publishers. While doing this for a year and a half to 2 years, I got extremely frustrated with the way that Facebook kept changing the rules for developers that were trying to build on top of their data. So instead of being able to really innovate, every few weeks we were just plugging holes and running around with metaphorical tape and trying to fix our products instead of being able to innovate. And this was around the same time where I started to buy my first crypto. And when I started to dive a little bit deeper into the technology of smart contracts, I came to the conclusion that essentially a smart contract is an immutable API interface. And that would solve the exact issue that I was running into with Facebook, right? So the lack of centralized gatekeepers being able to sort of rug pull your access to their data, making it almost impossible to build third-party applications on top of their networks was super attractive to me. So yeah, essentially that made me sort of like make the jump into sort of like the Web3 crypto space. And yeah, the main reason for that was because I knew like the power of third-party builders building on top of sort of like other data, right? So you had sort of like this idea of like minimal composability that you have in the Web2 space, and Web3 just completely opened that up. So started working in the Web3 space, built a bunch of prototypes and MVPs back in the day, doing consultancy. Eventually ran into a research team out of Los Angeles, who I joined. We ended up getting a quite decent grant at the time from the Ethereum Foundation. This was around 2018, where we were building Plasma. And Plasma was kind of dead for a while, but actually last week, I believe, yeah, Vitalik started tweeting about it again. So Plasma essentially is like an L2 scaling solution for Ethereum. And eventually it got sort of like replaced in the zeitgeist by rollups, but it's looking to make a little comeback with the advancements in CK. So I worked on that for a while. And then while I was demoing one of our products at ETH Berlin in 2018, I ended up meeting my co-founder, Peter Mitchell, CEO. He and I then started building multiple products in the space. We started very much at like the top of the stack in the sort of like consumer side of things. So we started with a web application that allowed you to get an overview of decentralized applications at the times. And this was at the time where OpenSea had like 20 monthly active users or something, and we were talking to them about the founders, about like how to increase their reach and like how to increase usage. It was really funny looking back in hindsight. Eventually, we were sitting in a WeWork, and we saw sort of like the crazy spending that they were doing. This was in Hamburg, which is not even like that big of a hub for startups. And we saw like how much they were spending and how many new WeWorks they were opening. We're like, this seems unsustainable. Seems like we have some information. How cool would it be if we could go short on WeWork, because they're still a private company? So we started something called Flux Market, which was meant to be an app for derivatives on startups. So you could basically go long or short on startup milestones, funding rounds, that type of stuff. And while building this, we then again ran into an issue of sort of like the scalability of Ethereum at the time. We were building it on top of Augur and 0x, and the transaction fees were just making it already back then quite infeasible to build a scalable product that reaches mass adoption. So we then started building open market infrastructure, and while building open market infrastructure, we sort of came to the conclusion that the lowest hanging fruit was actually not open market infrastructure, but providing data to open market infrastructure. Because a lot of the solutions that were out there back then, we didn't feel were sort of like holding up the ethics or the philosophy of that the crypto space was built upon. So yeah, that's when we started building oracles. To this date, we've launched 2 oracles. They're both under the name Flux. One of them was an optimistic oracle, and the second one was a first-party oracle. The first-party oracle in the last bull market ended up securing almost $4 billion at the peak, and has enabled like 180 something billion dollars of value transfers. So that was actually, we took that kind of by storm. We grew to the second largest oracle in the space in 7 weeks, I think, which was really quite cool. But we ran into a bunch of scalability issues, which is my segue into Seda. Seda is a rebranding of Flux, and it's a sort of like, I'm calling it the everything oracle. It's a specific layer for data in Web3.
Yeah, fantastic. Very well said, Jasper. Thank you for that. So I guess it'd be useful at this point, Jasper. I mean, most people are aware of the idea behind oracles, but maybe it'd be useful just at a high level if you can kind of, again, make the case for why oracles are crucial, I suppose, in linking on-chain activity to real-world data. And please, I'd love it if you could use some real-world use cases, things, some of the oracles you've worked in or are working with, prediction markets, anything like that. Please go for it.
Yeah, of course. So the one sentence description of what's called the oracle problem, in my opinion, is that smart contracts only have access to data within their execution environment. Now, that's extremely jargony, so I'm going to break that down a little bit. When you deploy a smart contract on Ethereum, all that smart contract has access to is other contracts on Ethereum and the state they store. That means that there are certain data, most of the data in the world, that is inaccessible to these smart contracts. So you need to find a way to bridge this data to these smart contracts in order for them in order for you to enable new use cases on that smart contract platform. And then the most sort of like on the nose examples that are out there are lending markets, derivatives markets. They all need settlement prices, right? Like if you buy an option on the price of ETH, at expiry, you need to know what the price of ETH is in order to settle the market. Same with perps. You need to know the index price in order to maintain the right margins. And and another one, like you mentioned, prediction markets, for example. At the end of a prediction market, you need to know the outcome of the prediction market in order to settle the market. Another one that's quite frequently used is randomness. So having like a true randomness on a smart contract is actually harder than it seems. That's not manipulable by validators or back in the day miners. So using oracles for providing true randomness is also a pretty obvious use case. And then another one, which is less obvious, or at least not seen as one, but essentially when you are bridging tokens from one layer to another, you're essentially using an application-specific oracle, but we just call them bridges. So that's another really obvious example of like something you would see in the wild today that you could use tomorrow, essentially.
Yeah, exactly right. So tell us a little bit more about how you are solving this problem with Seda then. What is specific to your protocol and how it works?
Sure thing. So there's a few things in which we excel at Seda. First of all is that we really try to build the oracle from first principles that match with the first principles in which current layer ones are built.
Yeah.
Right. So we really value immutability, decentralization, and accessibility, so permissionlessness, for all of the actors within the ecosystem. And I think that the coolest way in which that shows is that what we've built, I like to compare to almost like an Ethereum, right? So on Ethereum, you have this blockchain, and any end user can choose to interact with that blockchain, sign a transaction, and interact with applications on that blockchain. What we've built with Seda is a network that instead of sort of end users, smart contracts or protocols can interact with directly and query data outside of their execution environment. So the real goal and the real sort of like breakthrough that we came through is that we came up with this system in which any smart contract can request any data from any layer one. And I think that that is extremely powerful. Other than that, some of the more cool things we do is that we have sustainable economics through OEV auctions, which is quite a rabbit hole we can dive into, but that will take a bit. And it, like I mentioned, it's completely decentralized. So it's a decentralized network executing these requests. Plus, when you create a new feed on our network, you can specify how the data should be queried and computed. So you can in a very detailed way select which sources you want our network to query and how you want those sources to be computed into a consumable outcome for your protocol.
Got it. And of course, this is not just EVM chains, but essentially almost all chains, right? All ecosystems.
Yeah. So what I really love about it is that essentially any layer one that can verify our proofs, which are not cryptographically super complicated, like I think any layer one, at least one of the larger ones, should have the smart contract capability to do so, immediately get access to our data. And what sets us apart from other oracles is that it doesn't even necessarily require us to launch there. It's quite easy to integrate with our oracle, even without getting permission from us or needing a DAO vote or anything like that.
Yep. And just bring it back to, I think you used the term before, Jasper, everything oracle. So, I mean, in two words, that kind of explains everything, but obviously there's, there's a lot of thinking behind that. There's a lot of vision behind that. Just approach that any way you like. What do you mean by everything oracle in terms of where we are now? But I suppose even more importantly, where does that take us as we go further into the future?
Yeah. So with everything oracle, I basically mean that it's not bounded by a certain use case or certain data. You can query data on anything from anywhere, and that really opens up the potential of like a ton of new use cases that we as a team do not have the bandwidth to come up with, right? Like, I think that a lot of the restriction we're seeing is in the way that like the other oracles run is often like there's like a small group of people that decide what lands on chain, what data lands on chain, and what data doesn't land on chain, right? So we are putting this all in the hands of developers, and developers can choose exactly which data to query how. And we think that this will enable sort of like the next big wave of applications. Because if Ethereum did this back in the day where they said like, hey, you can only use our network for transferring ETH, or just for, I don't know, like social data or an ESG, then we wouldn't have the DeFi landscape we have today. We wouldn't have a ton of use cases that we would have today, right? So sort of like being a non-opinionated oracle that allows you to do anything as a developer is something that I'm super excited about.
So you said, it's up to other developers to come up with those use cases. Can certainly understand that your team is focused on just building out Seda and making these use cases possible. Maybe that is going to take a lot of bandwidth, of course. But just speculate away, like if down the line, what are some of the other use cases that, in theory, can become possible thanks to Oracle networks such as Seda?
Yeah. I mean, if we spitball here, there's some pretty interesting stuff, right? Like I know people that are trying to build some very complex financial primitives that require quite a bit of computation that a smart contract on Ethereum or many of the other layer ones just cannot handle because it would be too expensive to do on chain. This is something you can outsource to our network. Other things you could do, which we've been musing about, is, for example, the creating a more direct connection between social platforms and bringing your social sort of like reputation on chain by querying social media, for example.
Yes.
Yeah, there's a lot more. Yeah. I mean, my mind is really focused on sort of like making this product work. So that's also part of the reason why we are sort of like, betting on the future generation of developers to come up with more cool things, because I am slightly limited in my creativity on this subject.
Of course. But it's really, I suppose, it's really about data, though, isn't it, Jasper? And kind of because as humans build out our technology in all different areas, we produce more and more data. Look, I don't have the figures in front of me, but I imagine the amount of data that has been produced by humans since, say, 2020 would be an order of magnitude above the decade before that, and so on and so forth. But one of the well, speak to this, Jasper, then. So how do you kind of make sense of this? Because that's really what oracles are all about. It's helping, obviously, connect that data to the on-chain world, and being able to make sense of it as well, right?
Yeah, exactly. So one of the sort of like outcomes of this huge collection of data that we've been generating over the last few decades, of course, is AI, and what we're seeing with ChatGPT and all of these LLMs coming out. And I think that that's actually another good example of something you can build with Seda. You could plug in you can plug our network into these LLMs and start using natural language model to perform on-chain actions, for example, right? Or have a DAO ran by an AI, for example, like if we get really wild with it, that is being queried through our oracles. I think that's sort of like definitely something that's not too far away on the horizon.
Yeah, I mean, and fun, I mean, speaking of that, you can imagine a DAO run by an AI. It sounds quite sci-fi, but given the events, I'm sure you've been watching the events that have happened at OpenAI sort of over the weekend, really. You can kind of, the board management, the board shenanigans at OpenAI, it makes DAO management look really easy in comparison. But I think the point is, you can imagine in the not too distant future, does perhaps make sense that an AI could be much more competent at managing something like a DAO.
Yeah, I have a friend. I don't know if I can mention his name and what he's doing, because I don't know if he announced it yet, but he's the CEO of a pretty large crypto project with, he has a very impressive background in AI, and he's actually looking to replace himself with an AI within the next 5 years. He just as the CEO of the entire thing, and he's very serious about it. So yeah, I think you're spot on there. I don't think this is too far out.
Yeah, and look, I mean, not to press the point, but humans we're not rational creatures 100% of the time, which just means that, yeah, there's a lot of variability for things to go wrong.
Yeah, exactly. But with an AI, at least you can dictate it to be rational, right? And then like he just uses his rational substrate and then just makes rational decisions to a certain degree, at least in theory. I mean, we'll have to see how much this plays out, right? Like you get all of these incremental sort of like advancements in these technologies, such as AI and crypto too. And then all of a sudden there's like one super, super big improvement that then enables like a bunch more use cases. Such as ChatGPT was one, right? Like all of a sudden AI becomes super hot just because of this like innovation that took a while to develop. And yeah, I hope that what we're building at Seda will also contribute to sort of like the next big set of use cases that we see in the Web3 space.
Yeah, well, let's talk about that then, Jasper. How far along are you on, I guess, the Seda journey, the Seda roadmap, however you want to kind of think about it? You're correct in saying that, we had this massive hype behind Web3, a year, 2 years ago, and then a lot of that attention did perhaps switch to AI after the release of the first ChatGPT. So of course we've been through a crypto bear market. It's always harder in a bear market, but yeah, talk to me about what you see happening in Web3 at the moment. What are the trends you're watching? How far along, as I say, the Seda journey are you? What do you need to happen next?
Yeah, good point. So we just launched our first testnet a few weeks ago. So looking how that advances, that's running pretty smoothly. We're looking to launch 2 more testnets before mainnet, but mainnet is targeted for Q1 2024. So yeah, that's going to happen. Then I personally, so my company Seda was forged in the bear market. Like the reason me and my co-founder are who we are today is because we were trying to raise throughout the whole last bear market, and it was really, really rough. But it's super productive, right? Like this is where the innovation happens. This is where the sort of like builder's magic happens. We need these moments of market quietness in order to flush out some of the bad actors, which we're obviously seeing left and right, and to focus on the things that we came here for, like what attracted us to the space to begin with. And I think that these moments of peace, although sometimes a bit violent, are extremely valuable and actually a huge accelerator for the technology. If we would just be in a constant bull market, I couldn't picture working in this space.
Yeah, absolutely. Of course, bear market or bull market, it's always important to have the support of the community or backers. I see you've got an interesting list of, I guess, investors helping the cause.
Yeah. So we raised over 10 million. What was it? 2 years ago-ish? Yeah, I think so. Sorry, the time. That's the part of the bear market that I don't like. The time flies so fast. Like I have no idea.
Yes.
where we're at. But yeah, so yeah, but we were backed, raised over 10 million from a bunch of investors, including led by Distributed Global, Coinbase Ventures, Coin Fund, Reciprocal Capital, and many, many more. So during this raise, we really valued sort of like investor diversification. So make sure we don't get too many investors, or we'd rather have like a lot of investors with small checks than 1 or 2 investors with large checks. Just for the sake of sort of like minimal decentralization, even in private rounds.
Yeah. Okay. So you talked about launching the first testnet. So that's in my notes, I've got the Lucid testnet, right?
Yeah, I think Euclid.
Euclid.
So I think it's what it's. Yeah.
Yeah, you're right. Euclid. It actually rolls off the tongue quite nicely. It's nice to say that, Euclid.
It is.
And
It was
so,
even nicer to launch.
yes, I'm sure. So you mentioned there's a second one coming, and so just how are they? How is that performing? That's a closed kind of beta environment at the moment.
Yeah. So the goal of this first testnet rollout was really to make sure the foundation is there, right? Like things are stable, things are running, data requests are coming through. So I think we've done over 25,000 data requests so far. So there's a bunch of feeds that have been running for this duration of time. Nodes don't go down. So we're now looking to onboard like the first set of external validators onto this testnet. And then the next testnet is really in the goal of the next testnet is to start onboarding the first external testnets. So get like an Ethereum testnet on board. We're talking to a bunch of other launch partners to launch our testnet on so that developers can start testing there. And then the third testnet is just basically making sure all the economic parameters are in place and set right. Another interesting point there actually around the accessibility of our data is in the near future, we're seeing sort of like this modular playbook really like roll out. So you get all of these application specific rollups that are launching or app chains, and they all need data. Like if I launch even an app chain that's just like built for one use case, odds are I need some sort of data outside of the chain, whether it's for token bridging or whether it's price data or whether it's random numbers, right? And we're really able to serve this specific niche really, really well because of the permissionless accessibility of our network, right? So if I spin up a rollup tomorrow on one of our partners, I can immediately access all of the data on the Seda network. And I think that is such a powerful feature for this modular future where you cannot rely on third-party oracles to hopefully launch on your network all securely if you launch it like quite fast or you're not like the biggest name, right? And I think that is something that a lot of the L1s are running into, sort of like this inaccessibility of external data.
Yeah, right. Also, Jasper, a lot of people, when they think of oracles, of course, Chainlink is the name that comes to mind. Just curious as to, I don't know how you think about Chainlink. Are they a competitor? Is it good to have different teams trying to solve the same Oracle problem, maybe taking different paths? How do you see yourself differentiating from Chainlink?
Yeah, I mean, I think most of the points I mentioned earlier that make us unique would still hold in the comparing us to Chainlink. I think that yes, competition is very healthy. I think that competitors working with different methodologies, but still getting to some of the same conclusions is usually a good sign. Yeah, I think, of course, it's healthy to have competition in the space. And I think that, yeah, exactly.
Very diplomatically said. All right. Well, look, as we finish off this part of the podcast, Jasper, just for people listening, who should most benefit from looking at Seda? And yeah, where should they go? What should they do if there's developers listening? Why should they come and get involved?
Yeah, if you're a developer, go to seda.xyz, join our Discord, ask questions if you need data. If you are a layer one and you're sitting with your hands in your hair because you don't know how the applications on your network are going to get access to data, also reach out. If you are a data provider that has been looking at the Web3 space and wants to enter the Web3 space, or already has been active in the Web3 space and is looking to new ways to monetize their data, also reach out. We got a very interesting product for you. yeah, that would be the best way. Find us on Twitter, Seda Protocol. Find us on at flux.xyz, and yeah, talk to us on Discord.
Awesome. Yes, indeed, listeners. The website, Seda, seda.xyz. Link, of course, will be or is in the show notes. I reckon what we do now, we'll go do a very quick break, and then we'll come back. We'll have some fun. We'll finish off by running Jasper through the very famous Crypto Conversation hot take round. We'll be back in 1 second.
Hey, what are you still doing up?
I've just spent my entire Friday night researching Bitcoin charts, crypto glossaries. My brain feels like it's going to explode.
Why don't you just use BitGet? It's going to save you at least 10,000 hours trying to learn it yourself. It's an online crypto exchange. You can copy successful real-life traders having their expertise to make smarter trades.
Really?
Yes, really. Don't miss out. Get on it now. And by the time you're done, Bitcoin will be worth about $100,000.
I just got my cat to help me do the research.
Hands off, gains up. Start copy trading on BitGet.
All right, we are back, and I'm with Jasper De Gooyer. Jasper is the co-founder and CTO at Seda, a multi-chain permissionless protocol connecting real-world data to any network on-chain, oracles, essentially. Jasper, I like to finish each podcast with a quick round of rapid-fire crypto conversation hot takes. Are you up for it?
Let's go.
Let's go, Jasper. Just going to run some questions at you. Just want your kind of honest answers, hot take style. Question one for you. Where would you say that you sit on the Bitcoin maximalist to multi-chain opportunist spectrum?
I'm definitely fully chain agnostic. I think that wearing blinders is nothing but a silly thing to do in such a rapidly innovating space.
Yeah, makes sense. Okay, what would you say then is your firmest conviction crypto opinion, Jasper?
Interesting. I think modularity is sort of like the previous point would be a very strong one. I also think, bringing fully computable non-deterministic data on chain will enable the next generation of crypto applications.
Yep, very good. All right. Bill Gates famously said, Jasper, that we tend to overestimate what we can accomplish in 2 years and underestimate what we can accomplish in 10. So, anything you like, crypto, Web3, oracles, what does it look like in 10 years' time?
Everything runs off-chain on CK. Nobody can lie. Blockchains don't exist anymore.
Ah, nice. I like it. All right. Flip side of this, of course, is a quote by William Gibson, who famously said that the future is already here. It's just not evenly distributed. Can you think of an example of the future being here right now, Jasper, but most people aren't aware of it?
I mean, I think actually just being an active crypto DeFi participant will put you definitely somewhere there. Maybe that's a very middle bell curve response, but I think that is actually very true.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. All right. As we start to finish off, Jasper, time to get weird just for a second. If we zoom out, what do you see as the long-term future for the human race? Do you see dystopia or utopia?
Utopia. Got to be optimistic.
Yeah, of course. It's just a better way to...
Refuse to see dystopia, even though it's confronting every now and then.
Indeed. Brings us to our last question, Jasper. What is your favorite science fiction book, film, or TV show?
The Three Body Problem trilogy books. Yeah, for sure. And then film, probably Star Wars.
Yeah, nice. Yeah, that's funnily enough, Jasper, when I asked this question, the three body problem is perhaps one of the top answers that comes up again and again. I haven't read the books myself. I know it's originally a book series published by a Chinese author and currently in development for a Netflix TV show that I believe screens next year.
Yeah, I'm super excited for it. I think the whole, if you like game theory, the book is amazing. Yeah, very popular. Hence that's why it's popular with crypto developers, I guess. Yes.
All right. Hey, thank you so much for coming on the show and spending some time with us today. Jasper, look, as we finish off, just please tell people where they can find you on Twitter or X or wherever else you like to hang out online. And I guess, again, make the case for Seda and where developers, layer ones, and so on should, take a look.
Yeah, for sure. So I'm on Twitter or X on at Jasper Flux. Seda.xyz, so seda.xyz, reach out. Thank you so much for having me, Andy, and it was a pleasure to chat.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Jasper. All the best, and bye for now.
Thank you.
All right, there you go. That was Jasper from Seda, the Foundation for Data in Web3, creating the standard for data interoperability for the future of connectivity. Website, of course, SEDA, that's Seda.xyz. Great talking with Jasper, and of course, great to have another guest come up with, the three-body problem, two favorite piece of sci-fi. Amazing how often that does come up. Shout out to Brett if you're listening. Got to have Brett back on to discuss the three-body problem at some time. But well, there you go. We reach the end of another show, really, don't we? Thank you so much, team. Please make sure you subscribe to the Crypto Conversation in whatever podcast app you are using. I'm going to go back to the wonderful world of Twitter and see what has changed in the OpenIA scenario in the last hour, changing hour by hour, isn't it? Anyway, thanks for listening, team. This was the Crypto Conversation for Brave New Coin. See you.